Manchester United face Nottingham Forest. Just 1 point locks in a third-place finish, and it looks like Michael Carrick secured the permanent job. Manchester United may have accidentally stumbled onto their next great manager while clawing through one of the worst meltdowns in modern club history. What a perfect way to end the home season. I thought we played brilliantly out there today. Seeing Old Trafford rocking like this is unbelievable. We have had some massive days this season that we really loved. But just think about this for a second. A few months back, this squad was broken. Ruben Amorim was dropping points in almost every other Premier League match. Old Trafford felt deeply anxious. Bruno Fernandes was dragging the entire creative workload completely on his own. Casemiro looked totally spent. Kobbie Mainoo barely got a look in. United were sleepwalking into one of the bleakest post-Ferguson seasons we have ever seen. Every single loss feels like a total crisis for a Manchester United manager, and he had way too many in his short time in charge. Then Michael Carrick stepped back into the club. Suddenly, everything flipped. Mainoo became the heartbeat of the midfield once more. Casemiro bullied opponents instead of chasing shadows, and Bruno exploded into a record-tying 20-assist season. Great win here today, but I have to ask about your assist. You and your teammates really celebrated you hitting that massive 20-assist milestone. Kuna, Membu, Sesko, and Amard attacked with actual rhythm instead of blind panic. United took down Manchester City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, and Aston Villa. They totally controlled Nottingham Forest, looking nothing like that emotionally fragile football team from a few months prior. Michael Carrick has now won 11 of his last 16 league games, dragged United back into the Champions League, and somehow turned one of England's most disconnected squads into pure ice. But here's the scary part. This really no longer looks like a temporary new manager bounce. It genuinely feels like Manchester United finally found their identity. And that is exactly why Michael Carrick coming back to Old Trafford might just rewrite the entire future of the club. Manchester United did not call Michael Carrick just because the season was going badly. They needed him because the club hit a dangerous breaking point where losing completely stopped feeling like a surprise. When Amorim got sacked in January 2026, United were lacking way more than just results. Control, rhythm, confidence, and identity were completely gone. The stats were ugly. 15 wins from 47 Premier League games, 13 draws, and 19 bitter defeats. His wider United record stood at 24 wins from 63 matches. That is not just bad form, that is a pattern. To be fair, Amorim inherited a total mess. The squad was completely unbalanced after the Ten Hag era. Belief was rock bottom. The dressing room was exhausted from endless tactical reboots. But his actual job was to stabilize that exact chaos. Instead, the chaos just got more organized, which felt even worse. United looked totally coached, yet completely out of sync. Playing a 3-4-3 was supposed to bring structure. It usually sparked pure chaos. The system sounded great in theory, but it clashed horribly with United's squad profile. That gap between a whiteboard and the pitch showed up constantly. Wingbacks were always trapped halfway between attacking and defending. Two central midfielders had to cover miles of open grass. The front three stood completely isolated. If the first forward pass failed, the whole side looked stretched and visibly panicked. That is exactly why the losses hurt way more than just drop points. In December 2024, Arsenal won 2-0 from corners. 4 days later, Forest stole a 3-2 victory at Old Trafford. United gave up an early goal from a set piece, then totally collapsed right after the halftime break. By then, United had leaked 7 goals straight from corners, the joint worst record in the entire league. That is not just lazy defending. That is a squad completely losing focus, detail, and emotional grip all at once. Then came the results that made fans completely give up on the process entirely. A brutal 3-0 derby smashing by City in September 2025 marked United's worst start in 33 years. 4 miserable points across 4 opening games. This followed their lowest ever points tally of 42, alongside 15 brutal league defeats. The stats were piling high in the absolute worst ways possible. Then Everton dragged 10 men to Old Trafford after an early Idrissa Gueye red card, and somehow still won 1-0. Gary Neville branded it unacceptable, calling it pure complacency that destroyed trust in Amorim's squad. That loss hurt deeply because it proved United could dominate possession, hold more territory, enjoy a man advantage, and still have zero clue how to crack a low block. For anyone watching United lately, that was not shocking, but it still stings. I honestly thought United looked so slow and horribly negative against 10 men. You simply have to push numbers forward. It has to feel like the Alamo when facing 10 guys. Yet they still stubbornly kept that 3 at the back. Sure, Luke Shaw jogged up the pitch slightly. I was pretty harsh on him. That tactical stubbornness quickly became emotional damage. Bruno Fernandes got forced into literally doing everything. Instead of starring as the main creator, he morphed into an emergency midfielder, pressing hard, setting the tempo, and desperately trying to rescue games alone. Casemiro got hung out to defend massive spaces that no 34-year-old should ever cover weekly, and Kobbie Mainoo, one of the very few guys with real press resistance and cool nerves under pressure, became the ultimate symbol of tactical confusion. United finally had a midfielder to help them dictate play, but the system just never trusted him enough to run the show centrally. So the midfield totally broke down as a unit. Bruno dropped too deep. Casemiro became horribly isolated. Mainoo was barely used. Up front, the attackers starved, waiting for service that came late, rushed, or never. Sesko, Cunha, Mbeumo, and Ahmad were not the issue. United's attacking setup simply failed to give them consistent, repeatable patterns to actually use. So many attacks leaned on pure emotion, rapid transitions, or a prayer of a pass. And when those failed, Old Trafford felt every agonizing second. Players stood around hoping for opponent mistakes instead of forcing the issue. You could feel the crowd sensing the panic before it even hit. Every counterattack felt completely fatal. Every stray pass carried massive weight. Letting one goal slip suddenly felt like it would easily become two. That is not just a squad losing football matches anymore. That is a club losing belief in the sport itself. And that is exactly why Michael Carrick changed things so fast. He did not walk in demanding a genius speech or some wild new system. He took over a squad begging for simple clarity, not more complexity. Better distances, cleaner midfield ties, much calmer possession, and players actually knowing where the next pass and support run would be before the ball even arrived. His immediate job was emotional reset through simple tactics. He knew this club inside out. He knew exactly how Old Trafford sounds when hope fully drains away. Instead of trying to prove he reinvented the wheel, he just gave the squad something they could actually believe in again. The very first shift under Carrick was not a sudden winning streak or a masterclass performance. It was pure calm. United finally looked like a side that understood the match. The midfield suddenly got tighter. Bruno was no longer forced to fix every single problem alone. Mainoo had clear instructions. Casemiro had real protection. The back line was no longer left totally exposed by terrible spacing. Up top, the forwards started getting the ball in pockets that actually made sense. That is the real difference between a squad playing in terror and one playing with absolute control. Under Amorim, United constantly looked like they were barely surviving their own tactics. Under Carrick, they actually seemed to understand them. And way before the goals flowed, before the winning streak, before Bruno broke assist records, before the Nottingham Forest match proved the shift, that was the first fix. Manchester United stopped playing like disaster was coming. Carrick's United didn't become deadly just by running their counterattacks any faster. They grew deadly because their attacking moves actually became repeatable. That is the massive difference. It sounds incredibly simple, because it genuinely is. United simply had not done that for months. The match stats proved the shift was totally real. Since taking the interim job in January, Carrick led United to 11 wins, 3 draws, and 2 defeats across 16 Premier League games. 2.25 points per game, locking down 3rd place. Champions League football guaranteed. Following the Forest victory, United sat on 68 points. Not a bad run for a guy hired just to keep the seat warm. Bruno Fernandes hitting 20 Premier League assists perfectly captures the attacking revival. Setting up Mbeumo against Forest tied him with legends like Thierry Henry and Kevin De Bruyne, the most assists in a single Premier League campaign. That number never happens by pure accident. You need runners, perfect timing, wide shifts, box presence, and players attacking the exact same picture at the exact same time. Under Carrick's watch, Bruno stopped playing like a desperate man trying to single-handedly win every phase of the football match. Mainoo and Casemiro built a rock-solid midfield base, letting Bruno push higher and spot those forward runs much earlier. He could deliver from zones where his raw aggression became a deadly weapon, not a blind gamble. Mbeumo thrived immediately. He brought something United desperately missed: a true vertical threat. He stretched backlines, rushed the far post, and forced center halves to run facing their own net. Against Tottenham, he finished a brilliant corner routine in a 2-0 victory, sealing 4 straight wins under Carrick. Smart corner routines? Nobody knew United even had that in them. Cunha brought a totally different flavor of danger to the front line. He was not just finishing chances, but actively linking the midfield to the attack. Drifting between the lines, he kept United from looking predictable. And his clutch timing proved to be the absolute difference maker against Arsenal at the Emirates. He scored an 87th minute winner in a massive 3-2 win over the league leaders. That game mattered. It proved United could take heavy punches, fight back, and still keep enough tactical focus to snatch a late-away win against the league's best. Then Liverpool happened. United's 3-2 victory did way more than just book Champions League tickets. It proved Carrick's squad had finally built real, undeniable belief for high-pressure showdowns. Mainoo smashed home the dramatic winner. For years, these massive fixtures have been absolute emotional traps for United. Just pure panic, terrible spacing, and horrible game management. But this time, they survived. The Chelsea win revealed a completely different side of them. 1-0 at Stamford Bridge, with Cunha tapping in a cross from Bruno. Not their most fluid football, sure, but it showed a completely different type of control. The sheer grit to protect the lead, suffer without totally collapsing, and firmly tighten their grip on third place. Every big win told a different piece of the story. Beating City gave them belief. Taking down Arsenal gave them raw courage. Tottenham proved tactical maturity. Chelsea brought control. Liverpool highlighted their pure mentality. And Forest showcased true evolution, because against Forest, United were not perfect. That is why the match mattered most, winning 3-2. Yet that performance captured the full picture of everything Carrick built. Shaw struck early. Cunha grabbed the lead right back after Forest tied it up. Mbeumo sealed his goal off Bruno's record-tying assist. 8 shots on target compared to just 4 for Forest. Wasted chances, striking the post. Then Forest clawed it back to 3-2 through Morgan Gibbs-White. With minutes left, the old Manchester United would have panicked. Mbo missing those sitters would have sparked pure anxiety. Forest leveling the score would have turned Old Trafford into a nervous wreck. Conceding late used to make final minutes feel like a slow-motion disaster. Instead, Carrick had United playing like they completely trusted the outcome. They kept creating, kept attacking the box, using Bruno as the tempo setter, and perfectly managing the emotional heat of the game. Not survival football, just controlled football with flaws. There is a difference. The defensive fix followed that exact same logic. Bringing Shaw back gave United build-up security and left-sided balance. Dot looked way more effective since he was no longer isolated without passing angles. Muir and Martinez finally thrived behind a midfield that genuinely shielded the zones ahead of them. Euro in Heaven experienced something defenders missed for months, a calm setting to grow. No longer tossed into total chaos and just told to figure it out. That's exactly what Carrick changed. Not flawless, just coherent. The front line had patterns. Midfielders actually connected. The back line had real cover. Bruno finally found runners. Cunha got space to link up. Mbo had open lanes. Ahmad found freedom because the system around him finally made sense. But the biggest proof Carrick fixed Manchester United was never just the final score. It was the midfield tactics. Under Amorim, Kobbie Mainoo never even got a single Premier League start. 0. And this wasn't just some raw teenager finding his feet. We're talking about the most technically secure player here. Cool under pressure, clean in tight spaces, smart with his body shape, brave enough to take the ball in heavy traffic. Exactly the profile Man United badly needed. Amorim never fully trusted him. Carrick saw his value instantly. In his first 4 league fixtures, Mainoo started every single match, and United won them all. Against Tottenham, the match stats told the whole story. 33 passes completed in the final third, 12 more than he ever managed in a Premier League game before. That was the highest tally of any player in the division that weekend. That's no cheap stat. That's a player finally unlocked. In Amorim's 3-4-3, the double pivot covered massive ground, stopped transitions, and fed isolated attackers miles away. That exact structure makes elite midfielders look ordinary. Carrick refused to ask Mainoo to play outside his natural game. He used him purely to connect. The guy who grabs the ball under pressure and shifts it forward without panicking. Simple concept, massive impact. It unlocked Bruno Fernandes first. Before Carrick, Bruno was doing 5 jobs alone. Dropping deep to build, forcing passes to stranded strikers, pressing high, running hot emotionally, and trying to save matches entirely on reflex. Once Mainoo brought real control to the center, Bruno didn't have to sprint everywhere. He stayed high, found space in dangerous pockets, and created from zones where his risky passes actually hurt opponents instead of just looking flashy. His rapid explosion under Carrick wasn't a hot streak. It was structural freedom. Then Mainoo completely revived Casemiro's season. During Amorim's run, Casemiro looked totally finished. His legs seemed heavy. The gaps felt way too massive. Every lost ball dragged him into wide-open grass to defend counterattacks he had no business chasing. But the critics had it completely wrong. His football IQ was still elite. He was just badly exposed by a midfield completely failing to protect him. Carrick shrank those exact distances. With Mainoo beside him, Casemiro sat deep for control, stepped up when the press triggered, hunted second balls, and crashed the box exactly when it mattered. By then, Mainoo had logged more minutes under Carrick than he ever managed during Amorim's entire previous tenure. 449 minutes compared to 397. Casemiro evolved from pure destroyer to a player dictating multiple phases of the game. The numbers prove it. Casemiro had 9 league goals, 5.34 expected goals, 1,546 passes at 81% completion, 153 long passes, and 257 league minutes. For a defensive midfielder in his mid-30s, that isn't surviving. That's serious production. His last home match against Forest added emotional edge. United secured a 3-2 win. Bruno tied the Premier League single-season assist record, and Casemiro absorbed a roaring standing ovation and a clear Old Trafford goodbye, earned every single second. But the tactical shift is what truly matters. Carrick didn't magically make Casemiro younger, he just made the pitch smaller for him. Tighter distances, solid cover, smarter angles to press, and way fewer moments forced to sprint after lost causes across the grass. Give a veteran with that much experience a proper platform, and his pure reading of danger becomes far more vital than sprinting pace ever was. That was the true Casemiro revival. Not nostalgia, just structure. The Mainoo and Casemiro duo thrived by perfectly complementing one another. One delivered calm ball progression, the other brought ruthless defensive timing, leadership, and heavy box presence. Paired up, they handed Man United something missing for months. A midfield that finally had room to breathe. The squad stopped treating every single attack like it had to be finished in 5 seconds flat. They moved the ball patiently, shifting opponents, baiting pressure toward Mainoo, and pushing Bruno higher. That let Casemiro pick his battles instead of endlessly reacting to danger. Carrick didn't just casually select two midfielders. He totally rebuilt the dynamic between pure control and aggression. Mainoo provided the rhythm, Casemiro enforced the authority. Bruno unlocked his freedom off both of them. Once that midfield triangle clicked, Manchester United finally looked like a proper football team again. By the time they beat Forest to lock down third place, Carrick wasn't just some interim manager bailing water out of a sinking ship anymore. He completely shifted the emotional climate at Manchester United. So now, the question isn't if he salvaged the season. It's whether United accidentally stumbled upon their real answer while hunting for a temporary fix.